All right, my talk today is called No Code, Just Queries. I'm Don MacKinnon. I'm co-founder and CTO of a company called Searchcraft. We're based here in Denver, and we make infrastructure and tooling for content discovery. Today, what are we doing? We're going to make a full stack application that can perform fuzzy queries over thousands of records. And we're going to do that without writing any code. We're going to just prompt an LLM, and we'll see how it goes. And it should actually take less time to make the app than it does to go through all these slides. So what did I do ahead of time? I cloned the Searchcraft MCP server down, and I connected it to my local Claude desktop. And then I have a data file here in JSON format, but you could have pulled one from the web or whatever. And then I have a local instance of Searchcraft running, which you can download for free at Docker Hub. What did I not do? I didn't write any application code ahead of time. I didn't prep Claude in any way with external context. We're going to have a fresh chat here. I didn't make any API tokens. So why do you need an API token? Because you probably want to secure your backend. So we're going to make it realistic and create one. And we didn't make the search index ahead of time. We're going to be doing that in real time. What is a search index? For those of you who don't know, it's similar to a database, but it's optimized for running searches against versus relationships. All right. So before we get into building that, we'll talk about a little bit about MCP. What is it? MCP is a protocol that came out last year in November. It's a standard way for agents or LLMs to communicate with MCP servers. And so MCP servers can have two types of tools or resources, which are like the interfaces for that server. So a tool is really just like a callable function. We can run some code that's predefined by the person who wrote the server. And a resource is a read-only data store that an LLM can access to get extra context for your session. And why maybe do you want to use MCP? Well, one of the reasons it takes a lot of the guesswork out of what your results are going to be. So tools have consistent behavior, given that they are written properly. They handle errors predictably, and they give consistent output given the same input. Security, you don't have to give API keys to your LLM at all. It's all stored within your MCP server, or however you decide to have that siloed. Flexibility, you can take your MCP server and you can connect it to any LLM or agent that supports the protocol. So it's model agnostic. And performance is a big thing. Any code that you run inside of a MCP tool is run on that server versus being run by the LLM itself. So it's a less expensive way to run code with an LLM. And governance, you can have logging or auditing of access inside the MCP server if it has that. And it's just another way to work faster. So you can also think about MCP as being like a wrapper around an API. So maybe you want to just have a chat interface without having to construct API queries yourself or read through the documentation or whatever. You can just talk to your LLM and it knows about the API. All right, so this is the prompt we're going to use today. I'll let you all kind of absorb it. I'll walk through it. So we're going to create a movie search application, and it's going to use this tool called Create Beat App. And we're going to use this data set, which is just a path on my local laptop here. And we're going to use this other tool and saying, okay, let's make the index from this JSON. So what that does, it's going to analyze the JSON data and construct a schema based on what it finds in there, and kind of assign fields based on the data that's inside of it. It's going to make an API key so we can communicate and provision that index. And I'm telling it that I have a local Searchcraft instance running at this location here locally. Here is the same query I just showed you. I'm just going to copy that here, and we're going to put that into a new chat in Claude. And those tools I talked about earlier, you can see they're connected here. All right, we can see that it's progressing. It's making the index, it's creating the access key, and now it's building the front-end application, which is a Vite app. All right, now it's just summarizing what it did. It pushed 77,000 records into this index, and it made the front-end application and the application key. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at what it made. All right, so we should be able to run a search now. You can see we're getting some results back of movies. While MCP tools don't use up tokens necessarily in your LLM, if you're building these, you should be aware that your schema that you create for your MCP server does increase the context of your prompts. So you'll want to be pretty concise with how you define your schemas if you're building an MCP server. As far as people consuming them, best practices, you typically only want to enable the tools that you need for that session, which will reduce the amount of your context window, and as well as it will keep your model from getting kind of confused about which tool to use if you're not specific enough in your prompt. So that's it. That's the doc. Any questions, anybody? So that's actually in the MCP server itself, which you can grab it on GitHub. But so there are, we talked about these tools, right? So there's an engine API, hello, and it actually has knowledge around all of the API endpoints, like how to make a key, how to add documents, and all of that. So that's the consistent behavior I talked about. So like you can think of an MCP server as like a wrapper around an API if you're building one to interface with an API, so that it knows all the responses and requests that we can make through the API. And that's how it do. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good question. You can actually, so because I connected to Claude, it knows that tool. But if you didn't know what those tool names were, you could actually ask it. So it's actually listing out all the tools that are connected. And then it kind of gives a description on what each one does. Sure. So because they're functions, essentially, you can write unit tests against it, just like you can any other code, right? So you can pass it a variety of input and then test against that output. So when you connect to Claude, you typically connect what's called a stdio server, but you can also have it run as just a regular REST server if you want, and that's the easiest way to test it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Search is no longer a back-end burden. It's your next growth engine. Build faster, spend less, ship more. Join the mission. Redefine discovery with Searchcraft.